Good morning, and thank you for joining us at South Elementary to recognize and appreciate veterans.
We'll be asking you a series of questions to help the students here at South Elementary better understand Veterans Day and the sacrifice of those who serve.
I'd like to ask each of you to tell us your name, the branch in which you served, and how long you served.
My name is John Denny. I served in the United States Army Dental Corps. I served 2 years active duty and 22 reserve, so I served a total of 24 years.
My name is Tommy Jewell. I was drafted in the Army. I did 30 months.
My name is Bill Bond. I enlisted. I was in the underwater demolition teams and then the SEAL teams. I went in 1961, got out in 1965. I was in Vietnam from late 63 until early 65.
Did any of you serve during a time of war?
We all did.
Yes, we all did.
We all did.
Which war and where you were stationed?
I served in South Vietnam in a city called Da Nang.
I served in Vietnam in a city called Chu Lai.
Philippines?
No, Chu Lai.
Oh, Chu Lai. I thought you said PI.
No, Chu Lai.
PI would be the Philippines.
Yeah.
Where did you serve?
I served in Vietnam all over. No one place.
Oh. Why did you choose the branch in which you served?
I had graduated from dental school, and that was the opportunity available for me to enter the Army and become a dental officer.
I was drafted, so I didn't have a choice. I went drafted by the Army.
I enlisted. I thought I said it already.
You did. Could you explain a little bit to the students at South Elementary what it means to be drafted?
Drafted means that if you're 18 or over and a male back in the 60s, you had to register for the draft. The draft it went from just pulling names out to a lottery system. So if you got picked, either you went in the military or you went to jail. That was the way that we protected the country back in that day.
Clean your mouth.
What was your rank in the service, and what does that rank mean?
I entered the Army as a captain, which is the third level of the commissioned officer, and it means that with that rank, I was entitled to certain privileges, and I had a certain amount of authority. I had authority over the individuals in lower rank, and I was subordinate to the people above my rank.
I was a buck sergeant, which meant that I wasn't only a specialist in my field, but I could direct combat students. Anybody under me, if I was a specialist 5, I had just my job. But if I was a buck sergeant, I had my job, plus I could command lower ranking men.
Thank you.
I went in as an E1, so to speak, and by the time I got out, I was a third class enlisted man.
Thank you. What was your job in the service?
I was a door gunner on a helicopter most of my career. Then when they sent me back to the States, I became a mail clerk because I only had 6 more months to go.
It's okay. We can splice that right out of there. Mr. Denny? Yeah.
My job, I was a dental officer. I did like I said, I did 2 years active. The first year I was stationed. You know the silence that time?
Turn it off.
I'll start again. I went in as a dental officer. The first year I was stationed in the United States at a place called Fort Benning, Georgia.
All the time.
where I perform dental procedures like cleaning teeth, filling teeth, extractions, and other procedures around a person's mouth. When I went overseas to Vietnam, it was basically the same thing, but with a little added treatments. Like there was often some trauma that a soldier might get or injured by some flying metal, and the dental officers would assist the physicians in suturing or sewing up wounds. But basically it was the same thing. We did general dental procedures on our soldiers.
Is there anything you can tell us about the underwater demolition team?
Yeah. When I went to Vietnam, our job primarily was, we used to always say, to raise hate and discontent among the enemy. Most of our work was secretive, but we did a lot of, in the jungle, having a goal to find somebody or take out somebody. But that was about all we were there for, to capture people and turn them in for interrogation and things like that. That's me. It'll quit.
Okay.
My frog.
Fitting.
Frog man.
I'd like to ask each of you to tell us why you decided to enlist in the military.
I didn't hear.
Why did you decide to enlist in the military?
Oh, well, I saw that movie with my father, and I thought it was amazing. The original training ground in the Second World War for the Navy SEALs, for underwater demolition teams at that time, was over in Fort Pierce, Florida. That's where they initially trained them. And if you go over there, there's a museum over there, the Navy SEAL UDT Museum. And if you ever get the opportunity to go out the inlet in a boat, you'll see that the inlet is covered with a whole bunch of concrete obstacles that we used to practice on to get rid of them in shallow water, so the boats carrying the Army and the Marines into the beach wouldn't get the bottoms ripped out of them. So we'd go in there first and blow them up.
Clean your mask.
Many people who serve in the military come from military families. They have fathers, uncles, brothers, sisters, and children who serve. Do you come from a military family? Who else in your family was a veteran?
Who else in my family was what?
A
Veteran.
Oh, my father. He was in the Second World War over in Europe. He was an officer because he had an education. I was an enlisted man.
Both of my siblings, both of them were males. They both were in the Air Force. All my uncles were World War II and Korean veterans. Back in that time, it was very proud to be in a military family. Up until Vietnam, everyone who ever come home from a war got celebrated and honored for what they had done for their country. Vietnam never come around. That's why they do so much more now. 50 years ago, I came home from Vietnam. You know, that's hard for you guys to understand, but 50 years ago was totally different than it is today about our military. Yeah. When we came home, we weren't appreciated.
Oh no.
And now it's all over with, and they studied about it, because it used to be called a conflict, not a war.
And we never won it.
No, it's never over.
It was never won.
My father was of military age during World War II, but he had a job. He was a crane operator, and at the time they were building a lot of bases, and he tried to enlist, and the government decided he was more important, more strategic in his civilian job, so they wouldn't allow him to serve. The only one of my relatives that served was my mother's brother, who was my uncle, and he served in the World War II in Europe. My wife's both of her parents served in Hawaii during World War II, just after the Pearl Harbor invasion.
Pull your mask away and say it loudly.
What was most exciting about serving over our country?
Serving our country. Did you hear it?
Where?
What was most exciting about serving our country?
Oh, I love the service. The whole thing was exciting. Never a dull moment. Especially the branch, you know, my job. It was a very exciting job. You're always hyped up. And actually, the enlisted men and officers of other branches of the service that we worked with gave us a lot of respect. It was a good feeling.
That's sort of like me. The most exciting part, I think, was the comradeship with all my fellow soldiers and the learning how to live another total life, going from 18-year-old kid home with mom. They throw you in a combat zone within six weeks almost. You go from living like you live today to going to an area where there's bombs falling, people are shooting, you know, you're in a combat zone. It's exciting. It's very exciting because you don't know what to expect. It's just that you go, it's like going from elementary to middle school, you know, in a kind of mellow way. You don't know what to expect until you get there. And then when you get there, you develop a friendship and everything with the people you work with. It's just a different style of life, but life goes on, no matter where you're at.
I'm still in touch with a bunch of guys that I was in the service with.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like a little community. In fact, there's one at my house right now. John Roberts, he was an officer in the teams. Not when I was in, he went in after I got out. But we've remained buddies ever since.
Yeah, you bond.
It's a
with people.
camaraderie, yeah.
Yeah, it never leaves you.
Mr. Denny, anything exciting about your time in the service?
Well, I didn't have quite the excitement that these two gentlemen did, but I did enjoy, and I found quite exciting the amount of ceremony that I would see, and it seemed like the military went all out. They had bands and parades, and it was for someone that wasn't used to that. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So here's a good question for you. Do you remember your first days in the service, and what did that feel like?
I think I said the first time.
Yeah. Well, we didn't tape the first time, so
Okay.
if you don't mind sharing
Yeah.
that one more time.
Remember going to bed early, tired, and my first day, and they blew the reveille, and one of the petty officers walked through the barracks, banging on the racks, the bunk beds, banging on them with a nightstick, and it was black outside, and I thought, I can't. I'm going to get out. I'm not going to do this all for 4 years. But it got better.
The thing I remember the most is when you first go in, you get to know everybody, and then they take you and cut your hair off, and it changes everybody's look.
Yeah.
You don't know who's who anymore or nothing. They strip you of your individual identity and make you a number and part of this unit, and you will be punished or given good deeds as a group. If one guy messes up, you all messed up. When we're running and marching, one guy falls back, you take a big circle, you come pick him up and you carry him. If not, you all get punished. They try to make you a soldier to where you do what they tell you and that only.
They own you.
Yes, they own you. They tell you, Mama, don't work here. Don't do, the whole 9 yards. They even take away all your civilian clothes, including your undergarments, and issue you everything.
We call them skivvies.
Yeah.
Well, my first day in the Army, I recall I drove my car down to Fort Benning, Georgia. I showed up at work the next morning, they gave me a one-day course on how to salute, how to march, because I didn't go to basic training.
How to respect.
Very quick course. And the second day, they put me in a clinic with an assistant and a patient laying in a chair and started to work. So that was a completely different introduction than these gentlemen. But I do recall that the comrades you make, the friends that you make, you become very good at working together. So it's sort of the same thing. You depend on your friends. They become much closer to you than your own brothers or sisters. It's an amazing environment. I also would like to say that the way Tommy describes the military today, it's not the same as it was back then. And matter of fact, the pay is real good. It's a lot more comfortable. You learn some good skills, and I would recommend anyone that is undecided to consider going into the military, because you can go in for a couple years, you can like it, you can stay in, or if you don't, you can get out. But it's a great experience.
I went to Fort Benning to go to jump school, where I learned how to parachute. You got to do that right after you get out of basic training for underwater demolition teams. That's part of the requirement. And then you go down to Key West for underwater swimmer school. So where you have to hold your breath for a long time and swim laps underwater. And if you don't meet the requirements, you might, if they let you, do it over again after you've worked at it. And if you don't get it done, you can't finish.
What special medals were you awarded? What special medals were you awarded?
What special what?
Medals.
Oh, well, I got quite a few, and they're in a box in a drawer. I couldn't tell you offhand right now. I got the typical combat medal and all that other stuff that you get when you're over in a war zone.
Yeah.
I might add though, I don't know about today, but when I was in the service, and for a long time, even after I got out, there's never been a woman in the SEAL teams. And that's because it's too hard. You'd have to be almost a woman with a man's strength and figure and everything else to make it. Now that doesn't say that women aren't in the SEAL teams in an administrative. I don't know if any of you ever watched the TV show that's on. It's called SEAL Team. There are women in that series who do all the. It's not clerical, but they do the intelligence, tell them where to go, where the enemy is, and all that stuff. So I imagine they have it today, but training in the underwater demolition teams back then is way different today. You almost got to be a college graduate to even go into training.
Today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back in the 60s, there was no combat females.
No, that's right. There wasn't
There
any.
was no combat females. The females we seen in Vietnam were in the hospitals, stuff like that. There was none of them in combat at all.
I just watched a video of the most awesome jet taken off of an aircraft carrier. And when it was taxiing down to get in position to take off, this thing was unbelievable. Didn't even really have wings. The pilot was a woman.
So they've come
A
along.
one-of-a-kind aircraft. And it was a woman piloting that plane. Supersonic.
Woohoo for the women. That's okay. Try it one more time.
Thank you for joining us today and taking the time to share your experiences with us.
You
We
gotta repeat
appreciate
it.
your service and sacrifice.
Thank you.